Hello and welcome to Wednesday Debate Live with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International, and Happy New Islamic Year to all of you, our dear viewers watching us all around the world. May Allah Almighty bring us all more prosperity and progress during this new Islamic year. As we all know that within the framework of the new Republic's keenness to achieve real and sustainable development and progress on all levels, we're reading through Egypt's achievements and Egypt's power continentally. And as it is obvious definitely that the state today stands as the holder of important economic keys at a time where the whole world is embroiled with many challenges actually happening nowadays. No doubt that ever since President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi assumed power, His Excellency has been working very hard on strengthening Egypt's relations with the African nations and promoting Egypt's role in Africa. And this has been actually translated on solid grounds on more than one occasion, supporting African states also throughout the way for self-efficiency amid the ongoing global challenges, so to speak. In that regard, the President had attended this week in Kenya. He took part in the African Union semi-annual summit, and that is a very important summit. Many recommendations had been there. The President had addressed the summit, and we're further talking tonight about Egypt further bolstering its relations with Africa. We're talking about the future agenda and significant achievements of the new republic, and among them definitely is Egypt's achievements in Africa. We're really honored to have with us tonight Professor Dr. Zeinab Nawar, Professor of Economy. Thank you, Dr. Zeinab, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And together with Dr. Nawar, we will be talking more about Egypt's role in achieving regional and continental integration. But first of all, let's have a look at the top stories of the day. Among the top stories, earlier in the day, His Excellency the President received a delegation that includes the heads of the Chinese Wuhan Engineering and the Italian Palestra companies. Both are working in the field of fertilizers. He also received senior officials of the two companies in the presence of a number of government officials. Councillor Ahmed Fahmy, the official spokesperson for the presidency, had stated that the meeting dealt with a review of the ongoing cooperation with the long-standing foreign partnership represented by the Chinese and the Italian companies for the immediate start of the establishment of the third industrial complex for fertilizer production that takes place in Ain al-Sukhna. The spokesperson stated that the President had praised the ongoing cooperation between the two companies in light of Egypt's distinctive relations with both China and Italy, directing the government to continue on working on developing the fertilizer production system on the local level, as it is one of the most important inputs and requirements affecting agricultural production as well as food security. In the meeting, the President stressed that Egypt is working diligently to promote the various industrial fields, especially those related to food security and vital sectors, in light of the growing international challenges in that regard. President al-Sisi highlighted the continuation of efforts to deepen the local industrialization in Egypt, especially through the transfer of knowledge, technology, and experience by benefiting from the advanced production and the operational capabilities of the major international companies. So to analyze this important meeting, Dr. Nawar, as we've seen that on top of the list comes deepening local industrialization. We are open to the outside world, the different countries' cooperation. Earlier, His Excellency the President met, as we saw in the top stories, with the two international companies' representatives. China and Italy are very strong partners, definitely, with Egypt. How do you see this sense of partnership? I guess it's very much timely and very important.
Yes, of course. This type of partnership, I mean that with the Italian companies, of course, we are reflecting on two topics here, which is how to work on the local level and encourage the local industry, and how to do a partnership with the foreign direct investors and bring the latest technological advances into our country and into our economy. First, we know the Italians, and if we talk about Africa, I want to just make this link between the European partners and Egypt and then Africa. First, when we look for the Italian themselves, Italy as a country and as a government, and also on the path of the policy making, they do much encourage cooperation with Egypt. Why? Because the Italians, most of the time, they see us as a strategic partner. They believe the importance of a strategic location of Egypt. And this is why the Italian government, they see that part of maintaining their interest in the region. I'm talking about the South African region. So it's by doing a lot of cooperative projects on the ground and productive projects also on the ground in the countries that they would like to be in. So first, the Italian or the Italian partner, we know how they perceive us and why they are doing that. And actually, most of the cooperation and most of the partnership with the Italian partners are very successful because they like to work on the ground, and they believe in us. They believe in the Egyptian economy, and they believe in the Egyptians, and they believe in us as a community. This is very important. Given the Chinese partnership, which is very important also given the importance of China as what you can say, maybe will be the second largest economy now.
Yeah.
So this is very important. So you can see that Egypt, we are like the hub. So we are maintaining different relationships with different countries from the world. So we can be like a transfer hub also of this type of relationship and this partnership into Africa later on. So this is very important, that we would like to work this strategic important role, and this is how the world sees and perceives us, and this is what we need to work more and more on it in the future in different economic sectors.
Yes, as you wisely put it, Dr. Nawar, and also talking about working on food security. This has become definitely a very important priority, not only in Egypt, but for economies also worldwide. We are working definitely to support all the local industries in the country, achieving local development according to the 2030 vision. So a very important and a noble cause.
Yes, of course, achieving local economic development and using the resources properly. And for our country as Egypt, we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of what we can say potential on the ground, human factor. We have expertise. We have resources in terms of lands, water, location. So we need just to focus more on what we have an advantage in. We need also, again, to use our, what we can say, comparative advantage in different products. Number one is to satisfy the local needs, of course, throughout, if you are talking about the agriculture sector, different projects like the fertilizer complex. So this is very important, that we need to satisfy the local needs, and that we need also to do an exportation to the international community. So we still have a huge potential and achieving local economic development. This is what we are doing now through the different projects that the President, and also through different initiatives that we do have, and through the efforts of the government trying to deal with the poverty in different areas, Haya Karima, Decent Life initiative, helping what we can say facilitate the agriculture production in different villages, also working on the industrial zones and industrial areas in different governorates along Egypt. So all of this to push for more of local economic development, and also to push for the industrialization and to achieve the satisfaction of local needs and the, what you can say, local markets here in Egypt.
Yes, definitely, and we have the private sector actually working hand in hand with the government in that respect. We cannot ever ignore the role that is played by the private sector in order to draw a roadmap that is definitely going to be reflected positively on the Egyptian economy. So they are like moving in parallel, hand in hand.
Yes, of course. Of course, we all know that there is a plan, organized plan now from the Egyptian government about the different sectors that the Egyptian government would like the private sector to have a bigger role, and which sector that the government will be working in partnership also with the private sector, I mean the public sector with the private sector, and what feels that the public sector is going to withdraw totally from the market, leaving some of the sectors totally for the private sector to work on. The private sector is very important, especially when we talk about this time of crisis, worldwide crisis. Why? Private sectors means more dynamics, more flexibility, more resources. I'm not talking about more money, but I'm talking about more of experience, more of ability to work at a lower cost. Mm-hmm. So in this time, and given what we do have worldwide, the private sector, or the role of the private sector, is very crucial once again to achieve the satisfaction in the local level and in the local markets. Because once again, public sector cannot do everything. Public sector, it has its own role in the strategic projects, but it's the time now for the private sector to have a greater role on the ground. More of employment, more of incomes, more of innovation, more of technology, and more of dynamic steps, and less cost and efficiency in production.
Yes, it's great to see also how the country is working today on like achieving this sense of a link between the industries and a sense of integration with the global chains, as we've seen in His Excellency's meeting today with the representatives of such global companies representing Chinese investors and also Italians. So this sense of integration is very much timely.
Yes, it's very important. Again and once again, the strategic location that we do have, this is first, I can say this is number one in terms that we are by power, not by power, by and it's like an obligatory that we do have a very strategic location linking all the continents of the world. We are. If you look of the map of the world, you will find that Egypt is the heart of the world. So this is why we are the linkage between the different countries of the world, and they do know that, and they do know that clearly. And along the history and historical events, it had been proven that Egypt is the heart of the world. So this is why we will be this country that will integrate with the world. We will be the channel to what we can say, link the different countries and integrate them in our land. We can use this properly in bringing more of FDIs.
From Dr. Nawar's words, a channel in the heart of the world. We're coming to you live here from Nile TV International. Short break, and we'll be back to talk Africa, challenges and aspirations. Stay tuned. And we'll be talking Africa, challenges and aspirations. Actually, Egypt's participation in the Nairobi summit has been very important, along with the speech definitely delivered by His Excellency the President on highlighting the series of global crises happening that actually must not pressure Africa to discontinue with action, trying to establishing definitely peace and security and achieving sustainability and sustainable development, which is the main goal. Let's watch this report and we'll be back.
President Sisi highlights the development challenges of Africa at the Nairobi summit. President Sisi participated in the African Union's 5th mid-year coordination meeting held in the Kenyan capital Nairobi under the theme Acceleration of African Continental Free Trade Area Implementation. In his speech on the NEPAD Transforming Africa session, President Sisi stated that Egypt assumes the chairmanship of the Steering Committee of the African Union Development Agency, or AUDA NEPAD, for the period 2023-2024, amid very critical conditions as it coincides with tangible changes at the regional and international levels, and on the political and economic fronts, necessitating the concerted efforts to counter the challenges facing the African peoples and affecting the ability to continue on the path of development for the African countries. President Sisi also added that Cairo had set specific targets for its NEPAD chairmanship based on boosting the rates of economic integration and proposing solutions to address the existing challenges across Africa. In this regard, Sisi outlined Egypt's main priorities during its NEPAD chairmanship over the next 2 years. President Sisi also spoke at the Africa Blue Economy Strategy session, in which he underscored that the summit comes at a time when the world is witnessing tireless efforts to deal with the current and expected effects of multiple crises, given their impact on the ability of developing countries, especially the African ones, to achieve development for their societies and to maintain the growth that was achieved. The President stressed that Egypt hosted the World Climate Summit, COP27, out of its keenness to participate effectively in formulating and facilitating the international effort to address climate change, and to confirm the commitment of the African continent to advancing the climate action agenda. During his speech, the President outlined Egypt's vision in regards to the aspects that should be the focus of Africa's leaders in the coming period. Ahmed Fahmy, spokesman for the presidency, confirmed that the meeting in Nairobi enjoyed a special status as the summit was created during the Egyptian presidency of the African Union in 2019.
A very important summit in Nairobi, and His Excellency's participation in heavyweight, Egypt's heavyweight in the region and in Africa. We've seen definitely talking more about the continental integration, Dr. Nawar, and more than one important message and highlights of the President's speech.
Yes, of course, what I see in the speech of the President, that it was a comprehensive speech of how to do the African integration between the different countries in Africa. Actually, the President in his speech, he was very comprehensive, highlighting all the aspects of integration, from trade, means of finance, debt and loans, of course, the role of the different partners in development, the World Bank, the different aiding agencies. Also, the President talked about the supply chain and also the blue economy, the green economy, and the importance of the integration between the different African countries, and also the cooperation, which is very important, dealing with the economic problems, dealing with even and mentioning the political problems that most of the African countries need to deal with, and also what we can also, the President stressed on the climate change and all of these changes that these changes in weather, these changes in even environment and pollution, and all that we do have that are affecting Africa. So the President in his speech, he said that we have too many items and too many elements for the different countries, African countries, to work on. The President also highlighted clearly that the role of partners of development, yes, they do have some role, but however, what we can say, the amount of challenges is so big that needs a true cooperation between the different countries and African countries, and they can do that. They can easily do that because Africa is full of different resources and potentials, once again. So if the country, they took the decision to work on the ground on a productive projects and to do what we can say, some sort of cooperation on the ground. And of course, the President highlighted the idea of that Egypt can also support the African countries in terms of the infrastructure projects, the initiative of NEPAD that includes also decent life for the African. So we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of projects that the president is trying to
definitely translated on continental
transform to them.
Yeah.
So I think the president's speech was very comprehensive, and I do hope that the plans and initiatives and the efforts and all of that would come true on the ground.
Yes, definitely it was more or less a roadmap into the future. How are we going to invest in the NEPAD roadmap in order to reach the sense of continental integration, let me say, working on Africa's development. And as you've said, Dr. Nawar, that the ailments also for Africa were there. However, there was still hope and solutions, and how to overcome any sort of challenges while together.
Yes, yes, definitely. Yes, this is what we have to start by doing.
Roadmap.
Yes, by this roadmap. The president actually had made a huge effort during the time of his president. Of course, the time that he was the president of the African Union.
Yeah.
He just went and he talked with the Russians and with the Japanese, and having these types of meetings, a lot of meetings with the different leaders of the countries of the world, asking to support Africa, asking the importance that Africa needs a lot to deal with the economic problems. So actually, the president, and of course, when we talk about the Egyptian government and the Egyptian community, we are trying to support Africa in different means, in different ways, by giving advice, by giving what we do have in terms of expertise, by encouraging trade. So it's a lot of effort, and this is why we are saying that Egypt will have a heavy weight in Africa, and this is why we are, of course, a leading country in Africa. Yes. So a lot of potential again, a lot can be done on the ground, but once again, the starting point is the true integration and the true cooperation. And this is what the president is highlighting several times in his speech. And this is what should we start with. Yes. Rather than just looking for aid and looking for loans for the African countries, no, we need to look for more of cooperation and more of productive projects on the ground, and benefiting from Egypt, benefiting from other successful experiences of other countries like South Africa, for example. So we have a lot of leaders, a lot of models that most of the African countries can use and can benefit from.
Yes, definitely. And we're talking also this sense of integration between NEPAD and the 2063 agenda. So we're talking the future, we're talking the roadmap for this sense of integration.
The number one of this roadmap is how to work on the local resources of the African countries, how the African countries can use properly their own resources, how the African countries also can work on using what we can say the blue economy for those who have the potential for that, the green economy and the new methods of industry using clean technology, which is very important and could be a hub or a way to what we can say attract more of resources into the continent, dealing with the climate change and the challenges also of the climate change, and what we can say continuous negotiations with the developed world about how they should also work on their own plans not to harm Africa more than that in terms of climate change and in terms of all what they do in terms of trials, in terms of whatever they do for their industrialization, which also affects Africa. So the roadmap starts by the African themselves and the potential of the African themselves, and taking care of the resources, working more on agriculture and working more on industry, and looking for the sustainability also of the resources. And one of the main edges of the plan is how to empower the African youth, which is very important also. And one of the edges also of this plan, how to create more of small and medium enterprises in the African countries, and how the African countries needs to work more on this dimension to encourage more of opportunities of employability and opportunities of increasing incomes, opportunities of bringing technology. By empowering the African youth, this is very important for the African youth in Africa to feel that the resources that they do have, its own resources, not the resources of the other developed countries who are sometimes using their African, or using their country, and eventually this is what's happening in some of the African countries.
Yes, it's a vision, and it's a summit of implementation. Also look at the theme. We're talking about the acceleration of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is considered to be also a very important point to be discussed. Reading the theme in itself is significant.
Yes, the President, first when we talk about this free trade agreement, this is the efforts of the President during his, the time that he used to be the President of the African, of the African Union.
Exactly.
And he had done a lot of work, starting by doing the agreement and ratification for some countries of this agreement. Free trade is very important. Free trade between the different African countries is very important. Why? Because you are just facilitating the work of the business in different countries. So if you are talking about free trade, so it is as if we are opening the borders freely for the business in a country X, for example, in Africa, to trade with another country by less customs duties, by less taxation, all of these opportunities given to different business or private sector in different African countries. So both or most of the African countries who are trading with each other, they will be benefiting, or if we are saying that both of the countries that they are trading with each other are benefiting in terms of creating opportunities, in terms of opening the borders for the business of the country to trade in another country. And in exchange, the other country also will open its borders for, I mean, it's like a mutual benefit for most of the countries who are engaged in this free trade agreement. So trade creates money, trade creates growth, trade creates opportunities, trade creates mutual benefit between the partners who are trading with each other. So if we are talking now that we have obstacles in terms of the international trade, given the crisis that we do have now,
crisis,
yes. So I think this is the opportunity for the African countries to trade with each other and also to benefit from these potentials and also to trade with the rest of the world. So I mean, we can just use the experience that the African countries will get through trading with each other, and then there will be further accumulation of experience of industrialization of certain sector, and then the country itself can go to the international world, trading with the international world. So trade is very important, and having these agreements and the implementation on this agreement, the ratification, and also what we can say, the true work of these agreements between different African countries, it could lead to huge potential to all of the countries working on this agreement and along this type of cooperation and integration.
Yes, definitely. And Egypt is exerting actually tremendous efforts in that respect, motivating the advanced nations, as you've said, wisely put it that way, Dr. Nawar, and different international financial institutions in order to provide support and to provide funding for the African countries. So we're talking about the role that should be played also by the advanced countries in that respect.
Actually, the role that the advanced countries they used to do, it was changing along different timings and time factors, and now the advanced countries of the world, they are busy now of this type of what we can say civilization clashes between them. So they support Africa, and they do support Africa, but now they have more priorities than just supporting Africa. So this is why it's very important that if we see that, yes, the international institutions used to have a role, I don't see that there will be much role in the future. The coming role will be for the African themselves and for the governments in Africa. This is what our President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi said in his speech, that there is now a limitation from the international institutions. So by giving that, the President is like to highlight the issue that it's the time now for the African themselves and for the governments to work more, and they can do that, and they can achieve that if they have this hard and serious work on the ground. So they used to have a role, they will continue the role in a way or another, but the amount of challenges is so big that it cannot be dealt by these international institutions. We need more from the African countries and African governments and African leaders themselves.
Right. Such forums are always a great opportunity also for, definitely for world leaders to meet and see eye to eye vis-a-vis continental integration and further fostering relations. His Excellency had important meetings on the sidelines of the Nairobi summit with his Kenyan counterpart, His Excellency William Ruto, and other leaders as well, talking continental Africa, promoting this sense of collaboration. So we're talking about the importance of diplomacy and the diplomatic meetings on the sidelines as well.
Yes, of course, this is very important, and given our, what we can say, we are in the heart of the world, we are the a leader, one of the important leaders in Africa. So this meetings is very important, that the president also is promoting for what we are doing in Egypt in terms of the economic side, and also giving advice to the African countries, advice in terms of economic reform, what could be done, how we are in terms of how we did achieve an economic development, and would like to communicate that with different African countries, and also to tell the world that we are there and we are still there supporting the African continent and supporting Africa, because we are an important part in Africa, and we are an important leader in Africa, and what we do is to preserve and support the African countries, and also to preserve and support also Egypt.
Yes,
within
definitely.
Africa.
Yes, definitely. Dr. Nawar, how do you see this sense of collaboration with the different African countries, this sense of commercial integration that is happening today on solid grounds? Definitely a plus point for Egypt and the collaboration with the African countries on more than one level would also boost our prospects of economic development.
Of course, this is what the president had started then, talking about the cooperation and integration with the African countries. This was a total new for them. I mean, for ages, and we used to have problems in some of the African countries, political issues, economic issues. So the president is asking and is stressing on that to go out and to get out from this dilemma of economic and political problems that we do have in Africa, is one of the important solutions is to achieve cooperation and collaboration. Egypt had, under the president, we asked about that, but all of these are recent efforts from the president and recent efforts lately. And it is the start by now, and of course by this continuous work and this continuous effort, it will come true on the ground. And of course it came on the ground. Yani. We have a lot of trade between different African countries. A lot of issues have been resolved. A lot of problems also have been dealt with. I mean, we have achievements on the ground, but more of these achievements will come in the future by the continuous effort and continuous work and the true and hard work from the African leaders themselves.
Yes, we're promoting that free movement. We're implementing also the Unified African Passport. This in addition also to interlinking the financial markets, which is another plus during this important summit discussed. We're talking about the infrastructure of the continent, and Egypt also has worked hard during the chairmanship of the AU concerning that important goal. So we are linking all that with the agenda of 2063.
Yes, yes. We achieved a lot in terms of projects, in terms of infrastructure projects. We have a lot of edges in every and in different aspects. We can also give our experience to the African countries. So it will be an opportunity for the African countries to use us and to benefit from Egypt. Once again, the issue is the finance, the existence of cash and money in these African countries. This is one of the reasons why the president is saying that the integration and cooperation and trade and working on industrialization, we need to use the current resources to bring more of cash, to bring more of money, to bring more of income to the countries. This is very important. And once again, using us and benefiting from us and benefiting from our ideas, this would bring a lot. The president is saying that there is an opportunity from Egypt to the African country that they can use. The limitation of resources It's not in terms of limitation of resources itself, it is the limitation of how to use the resources efficiently. And this is what the Africans need and the African leaders need to focus on. Bring the experience and bring the expertise from the countries who would be able successfully to manage their own resources. This is what we need to look at in future.
Yes. We heard, of course, of the green economy, and this has been discussed in different forums. However, we find the blue economy popping up and discussed at the summit of Nairobi.
Yes.
What's the future of blue economy? And for our viewers who would like to know more about what's blue economy in the
Blue
first place?
economy, this is whatever related to the maritime sector. Maritime,
So
oceans,
ocean, yes.
rivers,
Yes.
anything that is dealing with water. So water resources by all means. That when we
Right.
talk about blue economy, so we are talking about the resources in the oceans, the resources in the seas, the resources that actually in terms of using these resources for the transportation and for trade. Also, these resources can be used for whatever inside this blue economy in terms of the species living in this also economy, how to be used and how to preserve the environment and to preserve this blue also resources. So blue economy, actually, this is maybe it came recently to most of us to hear about it, but we all know that the maritime sector and the transportation and all of this type of integration between the African countries in terms of the facilitation of trade, the supply chain, the proper using of seas and natural resources is very important also for the African countries. The green economy, it's about the clean way to work with, or the clean way to produce using clean energy. There is a huge potential for the green economy in Africa.
Yeah.
Why we do have that? Because of the weather, because of the whatever we have in terms of characteristics of the temperature and all of that. Actually, the European countries, they had talked about this in several times in their meetings, that there should be cooperation between the European countries and the northern part of Africa in terms of providing clean ways of production or clean technology. This is very important. So I mean that what I would like to add to you, that Africa, if you talk about the different resources that we do have, if we just focus on how to use these resources efficiently, this potential efficiently, whether green economy, whether blue economy, and the linkage between them, I think that we will have an edge.
Definitely, we will have an edge through all the efforts that has been exerted and continental efforts and integration. Professor Dr. Zeinab Nawar, Professor of Economy, thank you so much for contributing
Thank you.
Through your valuable input on the daily debate tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. I'm Taghreed Hussein. Many thanks for watching.